We're on the record at 1:31 a.m. Today's June the 2nd, 2020. This is the oral and video recorded deposition of Rochelle Ritzi. This participant should be aware that this proceeding is being recorded, and as such, all conversations held will be recorded unless there is a request and agreement to go off the record. Private conversations and or attorney-client interaction should be held outside the presence of the remote interface. Would counsel please state their appearance for the record?
Brady McKnight for Larson Crockett III.
Chris Hayes representing the petitioner, Nikki No.
You're on mute, Lauren. No.
This is Larson Crockett. I'm letting my attorney speak for me.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Laurel Clement, attorney for the witness, Rochelle Ritzi.
Thank you. Would the court reporter please take over?
Ms. Ritzi, or Dr. Ritzi, could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, ma'am, would you state your full name for the court and jury, please?
Rochelle Marie Ritzi.
And you are a licensed professional counselor.
Yes, ma'am.
And were you appointed by the court in this case to counsel with the child who is the subject of this suit?
Yes, I was. I believe I was named in the documents to see him before I had ever met anybody.
All right, now, what do you have a written order appointing you that spells out the parameters of your appointment?
I'm not sure of the question, I guess.
What were you appointed to do exactly?
To be the child's counselor.
Well, were you doing play therapy? Were you doing psychotherapy? Exactly what were you asked by the court to do?
To be the therapist.
The therapist. For whom?
For the child.
Larson Crockett the fourth, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, do you have a copy of the order appointing you?
I don't know. It would be in my records if I did.
Do you recall exactly what the order directs you to do in the course of this counseling that you're performing for Larson Crockett IV?
What I recall is that it's requested that I be his therapist.
All right. Was there any particular, were you doing play therapy? What sort of therapy were you doing with this? At that time, he was like a 7 or 8 year old child. How old was he when you began seeing him?
He was 7.
Hold on. I didn't get her answer because of the injection. What was the answer to the last question?
He was 7.
All right. And at that time, where were you employed?
Therapy on the square.
And what was your position there?
I was a therapist.
Okay. And was that practice owned by Dr. Brandy Schulman, PhD?
That's correct.
Do you need me to repeat?
That's correct.
Was that practice, therapy on the square, owned by Dr. Brandy Schulman, PhD?
Yes.
All right. And when did you begin to work for Dr. Schulman?
Summer of 2010.
Okay. And what was the nature of your affiliation with that group?
I was a therapist.
Did you have your own clients or did they assign clients to you?
Both.
Right. And the child, Larson Crockett IV, how did you come to be, who recommended you for that case?
At different times, the father reached out to me, and another time the mother reached out to me and asked for me to take the case on.
Were you not recommended by Vicki Alexander?
I came to understand later that she recommended me.
Do you know Vicki Alexander?
I know her through the court.
Now, you did have both parents initially sign contractual agreements with you, did you not? That spelled out their duties and yours,
Yes.
their obligations.
Yes.
And when you left therapy on the square, why did you leave?
To open my own practice.
All right. And was there any other reason?
I was ready to open my own practice.
Okay. Was there any special time frame for you to do that?
I'm unsure of gave my notice saying that I was going to open my own practice, and when that time came.
How long have you had your own practice?
I think we officially started at the very end of November.
2019?
Yes.
And when you would see the child, what were you doing? Play therapy? Were you, what were you doing?
Oh,
What were you treating him for?
okay. Which question? Those are very different questions.
Okay, let's do one at a time. What were you treating Lauriston Crockett IV? What symptoms or what diagnosis were you treating him for?
Anxiety and just reaction to parental discord, separation.
I noticed depression is mentioned too. Were you treating him for depression as well?
At times he appeared depressed.
And when is the last time that you have seen Lauriston Crockett IV?
I'm logging on my calendar.
Sure.
You can have to connect through the internet. Can you get on your phone?
Yeah.
Mary, is your smoke detector going off, or what is that?
There's nothing going off here.
I mean, I keep hearing a battery or something.
Not in this office.
Does anybody else hear it?
I don't.
Chrissy does?
Okay.
Okay.
My last session was May 28th.
And who brought him to that session?
Mother.
And did you interact with her on that date?
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Did you interact with Nikki No Cunningham on that date?
Yes.
And is there some reason that we do not have the notes, progress notes or written notes from that session?
It was in the file request that or the batch of information that I sent you.
You're breaking up. I'm sorry.
It was in the documents that I sent you.
I did not find that. May the 28th. And what was the what were your findings on that visit?
I'm unsure of.
What do you mean by findings?
Just that. Was the child still anxious?
He seemed happy. He did have some anxiety.
And what has he been told about? You're aware that he's not seen his father now for several weeks, are you not?
She doesn't know what he's been told. She knows what he
I
tells.
will ask her what she told him. Have you told him why he's not seeing his father?
I have not.
Has he said anything about why he's not seeing his father?
He told me that the owner of Hannah's house died of a stroke.
And that's all he said.
Yes.
Now, what is he doing for the summer? What were the summer plans for Larston the Fourth?
According to the father or according to the...
Ma'am, if you would, objection form is proper.
I'm just trying to help us move this along.
Well, please, let's do it by the rules.
Okay, if I make an objection form, you may or may not understand what I'm asking.
I will understand. I've been doing this a while. Just please do it by the rules. Now, Dr. Ritzi, did the mother or the child tell you what the plans are for the child this summer?
The summer regarding,
Well, what activities are planned for him?
they haven't told me.
All right. And who has helped him with his online schooling?
Objection form.
Did he say who is helping him with his online schooling?
He's reported that his mom has helped him with some of his homework.
Now, have you reviewed any of the most recent Hannah's House records?
No.
Has the child mentioned to you that staying home sucks?
At times.
When did he say that staying home sucked?
In one of the sessions, I'm imagining.
Anything else he said about staying home?
At times he mentioned that he enjoyed not going to school. At times he mentioned that he missed his friends.
And when you saw Nikki No Cottingham on May the 28th, when was the last time you had seen her prior to that?
2 weeks prior, at the previous session.
Did she come with Mr. Cottingham or alone?
I only saw Nikki.
Has she advised you that she was not leaving the apartment all summer?
I have no idea that was in the car. Just one person.
Excuse me.
Absolutely, what you should say is that
I'm going to object to the attorney-client conference, and it's right on the record. Ma'am, I'll ask you differently. Are you aware of whether or not Nikki No Cottingham has been confined to the apartment so far this summer and spring?
I don't know.
Did the child say anything about his mother not leaving the apartment?
No.
What does he tell you that he does with his day? What does the child say he does during a regular day?
He doesn't say what he does. He doesn't talk about that often.
What does he talk about? Go back to the May 28th session. And Andre, would you run up and see if Steve can find the May 28th session? I don't have it. Absolutely. Okay. What did he talk about on May 28th?
He said, quoting my note, client stated, Vicky asked me if I wanted to meet my dad in the park and go eat, but I don't want to. Client then further stated, well, my dad scares me.
He said that on May the 28th.
Yes.
Did he say how his dad scares him?
No.
Now, Dr. Ritzi, Has he ever expressed to you in all the time you've been seeing him, has this child ever said his dad was physically abusive or violent with him in any way?
No.
And has he ever told you why he would be afraid of his dad?
No.
Now, when you saw him on May the 28th, he had been in the sole care of Nikki No Cottingham and Rob Cottingham for several weeks without any intervention from his dad. Isn't that true?
I don't know.
Well, do you know of any access that his dad has had since Hannah's house closed?
I don't know.
And you're telling the court and jury today that this child said he is afraid of his dad and didn't want to go eat in the park with him.
That is what he said.
Now, Dr. Ritzi, you have also stated that you are afraid of Mr. Lawrence Crockett III, haven't you?
When I was asked that in court.
You've stated it on several occasions, have you not?
I don't recall when.
Well, when Stephen, our paralegal, was trying to make arrangements to get your records, did you state in writing then that you did not want to meet Mr. Crockett to deliver the records, that you were afraid of him?
I don't know if I used the word afraid. I'd have to look at.
You declined to meet Mr. Crockett, didn't you?
Yes.
When did you become fearful of Mr. Crockett?
I don't know if the word fearful is accurate. When there were times in which when I was in McKinney, at the office in McKinney, that he would get frustrated with me.
All right. And what did he do when he got frustrated with you, Dr. Ritzi?
His voice, his tone of voice.
Did he threaten you in any way to harm you?
No.
Did he ever become physically aggressive in any way with you?
No.
And can you produce for this court or jury any document or paper that states anything threatening or that you base your fear on?
Just my interactions of feeling just uncomfortable.
Feeling uncomfortable. Now you're a psychologist, is that correct? Or you're a licensed professional counselor. Does uncomfortable equate to fear?
At times.
Reduction to form.
I'm asking a question you can answer. Does uncomfortable in your vernacular equate to fear?
It can.
Well, did it in your case? Excuse me, just a moment. Stephen, do you have the records from the 28th?
There's a file that's dated 5/28, but the record just says it was created on 5/30, and the document references a different date.
Okay, Dr. Ritzi, Stephen Howard, my paralegal, has just handed me a document that is dated 5/28. There are no chart notes here except to say, Mr. Crockett is contacting you this afternoon regarding your retainer. He will pay you directly by credit card. And then there is another one here that says, it's simply about the email, but is there any clinical notes from Ms. Ritzi for May the 28th?
If she has, what if she can dedicate, point us to the file name, I'll print it.
Can you point us to the file name, Dr. Ritzi, and Steve will print it?
I don't choose the file name of the program itself. I'd have to look to see.
Well, if you would do that, because we would like to see the file, the notes where this child said to you that he did not want to see his daddy, that he's afraid of him and did not want to eat in the park with him.
So do you need to log on? I think I need to go into draw.
No, wait.
Let's see what I said. Okay.
You're much more techie than I am.
Okay, it looks like it is going to say progress note 05-29-2020.
05-29.
It's progress note 05-29-2020.
Is that part of the, are you looking in the, what you exported to us, or are you looking in your database?
I'm looking at what I exported to you.
Okay, is that in the LC font complete, or is that in the share DB?
Yeah, who's asking that? I can't tell.
Steve Howard is asking her to direct him to where the file is that he's trying to retrieve.
Oh, okay.
That she sent us.
Okay.
That is in the one that I sent you, where it took you straight into Dropbox, not the one that said share DB, the other one,
All right.
the most recent one.
It is in the most recent one.
It is in the most recent one from 9 last night.
Yes. From what it looks like on my side, that's when I open that up, that's what I see.
I'll run up and check. We're gonna have to know.
Okay, go ahead, and we'll get back to it. Now, Dr. Ritzi, would you pull up Deposition Exhibit 1? Do you have it?
It's loading.
Okay.
Okay, I have it.
All right. Now, did you see Larston Crockett the 4th at 5:30 p.m. on April the 23rd?
No.
I'm sorry, I can't see you. Your attorney's head is totally blocking.
The email notates something, but I can't say from the email if that's.
And Who called who made that appointment?
The mother.
And when did she call and make that appointment?
According to this email, it doesn't show that there was a time that she had called and made the appointment.
Looking at Deposition Exhibit 1, Mr. Whidden is writing to Nikki. He says, sorry for the delayed response. The situation is very concerning considering LC is saying that Logan did not actually fall off the bike. When is the next session with Rochelle? You may want to have Logan talk to Rochelle or Vicky, and maybe they can extract/massage the information, out the information. I do not advise that we seek emergency relief until we get additional information. Now, what was that in relation to, Dr. Ritzi?
I'm going to object to form.
Why were you seeing the child on that date? What information were you seeking to massage or extract from the child on April 23rd, 2019?
If I remember correctly, that is there was concern regarding a bruise on Logan's arm.
And when you saw that child on April the 23rd, 2019, were you aware that he had been questioned the night before by 2 police department officials and a medical facility?
That's what I was told.
Until 11 o'clock the night before, you were aware of that, weren't you?
Objection to form.
Were you aware of that, Dr. Ritzi? You can answer yes or no.
No.
Did you learn that he had been questioned until 11 o'clock the night before?
Somebody mentioned it. I don't recall who it was. It was in some of.
Now, and you did know before you started questioning him that this had taken place, didn't you?
Objection form.
Where did you get the allegations? Who made the allegations that he had been abused?
Objection form.
You were questioning him about possible abuse, were you not, Dr. Ritzi?
I asked him. Can I read my note?
Just tell me what you were questioning him for.
I need to read my note to recall because it's been a little while.
Is that the note that became corrupted and you couldn't find it when you responded to discovery?
This is the one that didn't download properly. I asked him if he knew why he had a session.
Well, you knew why he had a session, didn't you?
Yes.
And you knew that he had been questioned the night before, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, when you did read Mr. Whidden's suggestion to Nikki that either you or Vicki Alexander might extract or massage the information from this 8-year-old child. He was 8 at the time. How did you respond to that?
I don't know. I did respond to that.
You just made the appointment and questioned the child, didn't you?
I asked the child if
Did you make the appointment and question the child, yes or no?
Objection.
What's your objection?
You get
Let the witness answer the question.
Could you answer the question, Dr. Ritzi? That would be gratifying.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Did you make the appointment as Mr. Whidden suggested? Did you? At
Yes.
5:30 that same day.
I made the appointment because the mother requested.
Did you make it You read Mr. Whidden's, you were copied on Mr. Whidden's email, weren't you? You and Vicki Alexander were both copied.
Yes.
And did you respond to those lawyers and say, and to Nikki and say, my job is not to extract massage information out of an 8-year-old?
I don't, the only email I'm looking at is the email that I.
Did you respond and tell them that it is, as you told Mr. Crockett in the past, it is not my job to build a case for you?
I don't know if I responded in an email as such.
She has to have a release of information to talk with them.
Objection. Ma'am, would you just play by the rules here and we'll get along a lot faster?
Okay. Allow her to answer reasonable questions, please.
And if you would back off from so I can see your client. I'm questioning her.
Okay, you can see both of us.
Now, Dr. Ritzi,
I'm looking at
did you have a conversation regarding this massaging and extracting information? Did you have a conversation with either Mr. Whidden, Miss Hayes, or Vicki Alexander?
No.
And why were you talking to this child again, knowing he had been questioned the night before?
They asked for a session.
And you knew, you had read the email and you knew what it was for, didn't you?
I don't remember when I read that email.
Well, the email was sent at 11:44 a.m. and you saw this child at 5:30, which was after your usual hours, wasn't it?
That's not correct. My usual hours vary.
But you got him right in to question him. Did you have any reason, Dr. Ritzi, to believe that Larson Crockett III had physically harmed his son?
No.
Did you have the Highland Park police records to review?
I believe they sent me the records.
Who is they?
Nikki.
Did she send you all of the records?
I don't know.
Did you have the records that showed the child told them he was hurt playing hockey?
I don't know.
Have you seen those?
I don't recall.
Have you seen them?
I don't recall.
Well, they were the ones who took him to the Highland Park Police Department. Is that correct?
objection form.
Do you know who took the child to Highland Park Police Department on the evening of April the 22nd to be questioned?
I don't know.
Well, whose possession was he in? Just a minute, let me re-ask that. You're saying here under oath, you're telling these ladies and gentlemen of the jury that you do not know who took this child in to be questioned to the Highland Park Police Department and the Plano Police Department.
You
don't know.
Who drove him to the appointment? I know she doesn't.
Do you know or not?
She doesn't know who drove him to the office. It could have been anybody. Did he meet with him? Yes, she knows.
Dr. Ritzi, do you know who took this child to be questioned by the Highland Park Police Department?
Asked and answered.
Do you know?
Asked and answered.
She has not answered it.
She did answer.
What did Nikki tell you when she called you, Dr. Ritzi, and wanted you to see him at 5:30 that same day?
Could you repeat the question?
What did Nikki tell you? Did Nikki call you or did Rob?
Objection assumption. I mean, how do you know it was a phone call? Maybe it was an email. Maybe it was something else.
I'll be happy to re-ask it. Dr. Ritzi, Who contacted you, whether it was by phone, email, text message, or smoke signal? Which one contacted you, Rob or Nikki?
Nikki,
And what did she tell you?
that she had concerns about a bruise.
And is that an email that you got from her?
I'd have to search through my,
And if it was an email, it would have been given to us in your the documents that we requested, would it not?
yes,
So if there is no email, was it omitted or did she call you on the phone?
I don't recall. I don't remember how they made the appointment.
Whether it was email or telephone call, what did she want? What did she tell you had happened?
She wanted me to check in with Lauriston, the child, to ensure that he was okay and if he would share anything that could help him feel better, or just to check in with him.
That wasn't what Mr. Whidden wanted here. He wanted you to extract or massage information out of that child about an injury, didn't he?
I'm going to instruct that question to not be answered as it pertains to attorney-client communications between my client and my office.
Well, Mr. Whidden shared this email here with Nikki Alexander, with you, and that would be waiving any attorney-client privilege. So I'm going to ask you, did anybody tell you that this child had already been to a medical facility and questioned by the police?
I'm sorry, that question was long. Could you?
I'll be happy to. Did anybody tell you whether or not that child had already been to a medical facility in Plano and the Highland Park Police Department and questioned by a policeman from Plano?
Yes,
And who told you that?
Nikki.
And so you made that appointment and talked to him again after you already knew he had been questioned the night before by the police, by the medical facility, and by the Highland Park Police Department, didn't you?
My role wasn't to question him.
Well, you did get this email from Mr. Whidden wanting you to massage and extract information. You did get it and you did read it, didn't you?
Objection to form, it misstates the evidence.
No, it doesn't. Did you read this, Dr. Ritzi?
Yes,
Thank you.
More importantly, did you read it, Mary? Because it's directed to my client.
But it's shared with everybody else.
Regardless, it's directed to my client to indicate that my office is advising Dr. Ritzi to do anything when it's addressed to my client as a
Objection. Just stay by the rules, Chris. You know what it is. All right, Dr. Ritzi, after you talked to the child, was there some reason that deposition exhibit number 2, would you look at that? April 24th. Do you see that now?
I'm loading it.
Yeah, give us a second, please.
Okay.
Oh, there it is, exhibit.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Ritzi, you wrote this to Nikki, and you asked her, you were sending her an update for our session yesterday, but you wanted to send her a HIPAA form for her lawyers because they have been copied on the emails, and it would be good for them to have it in their files. Now, you told Mr. Crockett earlier not to even copy you on anything that went to his lawyers, didn't you? Did you not?
I've asked them to be, yes,
And you told him that if there's anything that pertained to legal matters, he would be charged not your rate of $146 an hour, 48, but $296 an hour. Is that right?
Yes, I've given both of them.
Did you, now here, not only.
Allow the witness to finish the question.
Did you have something else to say, Dr. Ritzi, on that?
Yes,
Please do.
I've given both of them those instructions.
But here, Dr. Ritzi, not only are you not instructing her, you are instructing her to send you a HIPAA form for her lawyers because they've been copied on the emails already.
I was asking
You
if
did, didn't you? You were covering it after the fact. And is there anyone else you think we should complete one for? You were sending out those HIPAA releases, weren't you?
because I've been copied on emails. I was asking for consents for whoever they were to speak.
Dr. Ritzi, it is pretty clear there from all that went on that they were trying to build a child abuse case, a physical child abuse case against the father, weren't they?
Objection form. And besides,
You made your objection.
you don't understand what the email is saying.
I understand more than you know. Just make your objection and play with the rules.
Objection.
Your question do not reflect that you understand what this email says.
Dr. Ritzi, were you aware? Did you become aware that they were seeking to build a child abuse case against Mr. Crockett?
I don't know.
Well, now you testified in court about that. You said, well, it appears to be, didn't you?
I can't speak to what they were thinking. I can only speak to what was said in session.
Well, what did you think she was trying to do? If she'd been to the police, been to a medical facility and 2 police departments, what did she tell you she was trying to do?
She said she was concerned for her child.
And do you know who the complaining witness was to the police department?
What is a complaining witness as far as
Did you know that Mr. Rob Cottingham filed the complaint or tried to file the complaint against Mr. Crockett with the Highland Park Police?
I believe I was told that.
Well, you said they sent you a copy of the Highland Park Police report. Do you have it?
It would be in my records if they did.
And it says that they were contacted about a custody dispute, doesn't it? Did you notice that? That the Highland Park Police Department categorized it as a custody dispute.
answered? She doesn't have the document in front of her.
Okay.
She
What's
just
the
said,
number, Stephen? Business Records, Highland Park Police Department. 53. Number 53. You didn't give it back to me. I don't have my hard copy.
is this from your file?
It's on file with the court.
Well, just because it's on file with the court does not mean it's part of her record. So that's what we're trying to establish. Is it part of a record?
Well, you said, Dr. Ritzi, that Nikki sent you the Highland Park Police Department report, didn't you?
Okay. We are going to find the document in her file that reflects what she knew about the Highland Park Police Department, not some random filing with the court that she may or may not have ever seen. Okay? So please give us a minute.
Sure, take your time.
Yeah.
It'll be over here in this stack.
If you can't find it, that's fine.
Yeah, there's literally hundreds of documents.
Yeah.
Emails they sent back and forth.
can you direct us to a number in her chart where she references the police report? Because she cannot find it at this time.
We'll move on. She represented that they had sent it to her, and here it is in ours.
Well, I mean, what report? We don't know what report she saw. We don't know what
official. Well, she's the one who took the child there. She's the one who generated the report, and we have filed it with the court back in February. So she is on notice.
Did not take the child to the police department.
Yes, they did.
Rochelle did not take the client to the police.
Oh, she didn't, but the mother did.
Okay, be more specific with your questions.
Well, and if you would be less intrusive and try to keep us from answering questions, we would get along a lot faster.
I am not going to be less intrusive.
Now, Dr. Ritzi, did you review this report?
I don't know what report you're referring to.
Highland Park Police report that is on file with the court under the business records affidavit.
Okay. She doesn't know what's on file with the court, okay?
Dr. Ritzi, did Miss Cunningham write to you complaining about...
If you were speaking of Deposition Exhibit 2...
Oh, could you lower your voice? Did you complain? Did you receive a letter from Miss No complaining that she had learned in Rob's deposition that the child said he was hit with a hockey puck? Do you recall getting that letter?
Hearing this, I don't remember where I heard it from. There's so many documents.
And did you reassure her that, well, he's just lying about that?
No.
You blamed the child for lying. Do you recall that?
No.
Now, to go back to your fear of Mr. Crockett, when did you become afraid of Mr. Crockett? Can you pinpoint the time?
It was a gradual discomfort, fear. But there was one specific time in which I felt in the waiting area at when I was in McKinney, in which he became very frustrated with me.
Well, and what did he do? What did he do to put you in fear?
Objection, allow her to answer the question.
Answer the question, Dr. Ritzi.
Can you repeat the question?
What did Mr. Crockett do? That incident you're referring to place you in fear.
He sat forward on the couch and was directing me and telling me that he wanted me to reply to an email.
He sat forward on the couch and told you he wanted you to reply to an email.
Yes.
Anything else that he did to place you in fear?
It was a tone of voice and just that he wasn't taking, I was explaining that I would speak with his lawyer on the phone, but I wouldn't reply to the email.
And what did, other than asking you to reply to the email, did he do anything else to place you in fear?
No.
Now, you testified in court. Where is the file? That Mr. Crockett had been seen in your offices when he didn't have an appointment. Do you recall that?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
You testified before Judge Moore in a hearing that Mr. Crockett had been seen at your offices when he did not have an appointment. Do you recall that?
Somebody shared with me
Do you recall testifying to that?
Objection. Allow her to finish the question.
Not answering the question. She wants to waltz across Texas, and we only have 3 hours. Texas is a big state. So do you recall testifying that he was seen stalking in your office without an appointment?
No.
No,
What did you say?
I don't have my testimony in front of me. I can't.
Well, you don't remember this? You said something that hurt a man's reputation and had a big impact on his life, and you don't recall what you said?
Objection.
Not verbatim.
Do you recall what you said?
Not verbatim.
Well, generally, what did you say?
I was told that someone in my office saw him in the hallway.
Okay, and did that someone, now you've refused to give him the name of the person, haven't you?
I've not answered that question.
Well, and I'm going to ask you again now. Who told you that? Who stated that Mr. Crockett?
Question. She's not going to answer that question. We can ask it over and over.
Just objection form, and please get your face off the screen so I can conduct my deposition. Now, Dr. Ritzi.
Not going to answer the question. Do you understand? She's not going to answer that question.
I understand that, ma'am. Would you please remove your face so I can conduct my deposition?
Okay.
You're being disruptive and you're totally violating the rules. Dr. Ritzi, when this happened, how did the person, without naming the name, how did the person identify Mr. Crockett?
I don't know.
Did they give you a name?
I don't remember.
Pardon?
I don't remember.
Well, did they give you a description?
You know, we don't have to go into this. And she's not.
Yes, we do. We do. And ma'am, you're not helping your client. Dr. Ritzi.
And guess what? You're not helping yours, okay?
Thank you. I think he'll take his chances with me. Now, if you would remove your face, I'd like to question your client.
And please be more polite.
Well, I take my cues from you. Now, Dr. Ritzi, what information, without naming the name of the person, what information was given to you to make you state in court that my client was seen at your office?
Her office.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Outside of her office.
You stated to the court that he was seen in the water fountains in the hallways by the restroom, didn't you?
We don't have water fountains by our
Where
hallway.
did you say he was seen?
I was told that he was seen in the hallway outside of our offices.
And who was seen? Was he named?
I don't recall.
And yet you did make that information available to the court.
I don't recall if they knew his name.
And that's what you're saying here today. Now, he wrote to you and asked you for information about that incident, didn't he?
He who wrote to her.
Lauriston Crockett III. She knows who I mean. You're just disrupting. Do you know who I mean, Dr. Ritzi? Do you know who I mean?
Can you repeat the question?
Did Mr. Crockett write to you and ask you for information about the incident?
Yes.
Did he ask you for any videotapes that might exist?
Yes.
Can you move the camera
And
over?
did you tell him that you would?
I just need the camera for the witness to move over, and I need to get the attorney out.
No, we're understanding. So just go ahead and film it the way it is.
No, ma'am. Slide the camera over so I can center you like the judge had asked me to.
I don't believe the judge asked you to do anything. Just go ahead and film it the way it is. Go ahead.
You are violating the rules, ma'am. And this is not your deposition. It is Dr. Ritzi's. Now, Dr. Ritzi, did you tell Mr. Crockett in writing that it would take some research for you to find out the dates?
Yes.
And did you get back to him on that?
Eventually.
Well, did you write to him and tell him when it was?
I told him when I was on vacation. I was out of the country at the time.
And it was after January the 15th, 2020, when you told him that, wasn't it?
I don't recall the date.
It was after your court appearance. Because you didn't, back in the fall, when you were in 2019, when you were giving the information to the court, you didn't say when it happened, did you?
I don't recall.
And isn't it a fact, ma'am, that you, Ritzi, had written to Mr. Crockett prior to leaving for your vacation and told him when you would be out of the country, didn't you?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes. You, Rochelle Ritzi, wrote to Mr. Crockett on a scheduling matter and told him prior to leaving the country the exact dates you were going to be out of the country, didn't you?
If it's in my records, I did. I don't recall.
If it's in your records. So if he knew when you were going to be out of the country, did you stop to think, what would he be doing, stalking you if you're out of the country?
I didn't. The question is leading. I didn't.
Well, I can lead, Dr. Ritzi. I'm trying to find out why you would accuse a man of stalking you when you had written and told him you were going to be out of the country. And let me find that letter.
I didn't accuse him of stalking.
What did you accuse him of doing?
I didn't accuse him of anything.
Why did you bring it up?
I was told that he was in the office.
Well, why would that be a cause for alarm?
Because at that time, if I remember correctly, the something had came out in which the mother had shared that she was scared of.
Let me understand this. Go ahead. Are you finished?
Yeah, I'm trying to go from memory here.
Look, something had come out and the mother shared that she was scared. So you told that in court. Is that your testimony?
I was asked if I'm not sure of the question.
I'm asking you why you brought it up.
Because I was asked the question.
Which question? And you were asked a lot of questions by Ms. Hayes. Does the name John Battaglia mean anything to you?
No.
Did you have any discussions with Ms. Hayes where my client, Larson Crockett III, was compared to a CPA who murdered his children?
I remember that from court, but I don't remember having a conversation with Ms. Hayes about that.
Okay, do you remember having a conversation with anyone about Mr. Crockett being likely to kill his children?
No.
And in court, so we're sure of that you had not told Mr. Crockett the dates of his alleged appearance at your office before January 2020, January the 15th. I'm looking at page 27 of the record, the reporter's record of your testimony by Ms. McKnight. Can we have the date, Dr. Ritzi? I don't know the exact date. All I know is when I was on vacation. And that was the first time you even gave him a date, wasn't it?
If it's in the record, I don't recall.
It's in the record, I assure you. And I would ask that Dr. Ritzi's lawyer, again, I'm going to ask that she remove her face from the screen and stop smirking and laughing and making noises. She's very disruptive of the deposition. Now, when you were out of the country, Dr. Ritzi, did you set up an arrangement so that the Cottinghams could even contact you by Zoom and stay in daily contact with you while you were on vacation?
They had my contact information.
Did you furnish that to them and invite them to contact you by Zoom?
Nikki asked for a session, if I remember correctly.
Just answer yes or no. Did you furnish them and invite them to contact you by Zoom while you were out of the country on vacation?
After they requested a session, or she requested a session.
Now, do you recall when in August 2019, when Nikki No asked you to contact Vicki Alexander and ask her to call the judge at home and get the orders changed?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Do you recall around on or about August the 9th or 10th, 2019, did Nikki No contact you and ask you to contact Judge Vicki Alexander and ask her to call the judge at home to try to get the orders changed, that she was sure that Mr. Crockett was going to go postal and kill everybody? Do you remember that?
I remember the email.
Okay. And did you call Vicki Alexander the way she demanded?
Section of form.
Did you call Vicki Alexander?
No.
Did you ask her to call the judge at home?
No. I remember I replied to an email.
Send that email on to Vicki Alexander?
Can you repeat the question?
Did you send Miss, let me get my folder here. Did you send Miss Nikki No's email on to Vicki Alexander where she was wanting her to call the judge at home?
I believe I forwarded the email to Vicki.
And do you recall what Vicki Alexander's response was?
No.
Did you think that was your job? I mean, you were responding to her hysteria, weren't you?
I shared the email with Vicki.
Marked exhibits here. Now, deposition exhibit number 25 to you. Have you found it?
It's loading. I found it.
All right, it's dated August 9th, and this one is addressed to you. And it says,
Well, I'm still reading it.
okay, go ahead and read it.
What is school at Hightower? I don't understand. That was his school previously.
I would object to conferences between attorney and client.
Okay, that's why I'm here, is for us to have attorney-client privilege discussions.
Were you waiting for me to answer a question? I'm sorry.
You now read the letter, Dr. Richard.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. This is addressed to you, and she's asking you, until the court can meet and change orders, she's wanting you, can you please contact Vicki and ask her to contact the judge on Logan's behalf so we do not have to meet Mr. Crockett. And she's saying that Mr. Crockett is going to completely lose his mind and go postal. Do you see that?
Yes.
What did going postal mean to you?
What it meant to, I don't understand the question.
You're telling this court and jury that you do not understand the term going postal and losing his mind in connection with guns?
I do understand the definition that people use. I didn't know if that was what you were asking me.
Of course, it's what I'm asking. It would be in the context of this letter, Dr. Ritzi.
From what I understand, when someone says go postal, they typically mean that they're going to harm someone, go in, shoot someone.
Exactly. And did you have any reason to believe that Mr. Crockett was going to do a mass shooting of any kind?
No.
Had you ever seen him with a gun?
No.
Had he ever threatened you with a gun?
No.
Had Mrs. No ever said he threatened her with a gun?
I don't recall.
Mary, could you tell me what exhibit number you're on?
Number 25.
Thanks.
And number 26.
Is this from her record, her files?
It's from the court's file.
Okay. Why is she looking at something from the court's file? She doesn't have any knowledge of it.
It's referred to in her and it says, our attorney presented the court, the judge, with a request for a temporary restraining order, but since our attorney was the only one to speak with the judge, he denied it.
I can read the exhibit. I see the, I understand what's referenced, but
Something, if you would just
I'm going to object to relevance. Okay, I'm going to object to relevance. This is a court document. She's a therapist. This has nothing to do with her records. Unless you can point to where in her records.
never mind. Listen, you are being so disruptive and so out of line, ma'am.
Okay.
And so now, you did send it on to Vicki Alexander, didn't you?
I forwarded Nikki's email.
Did you consider these to be legal documents that you were forwarding and receiving, doing with court action?
What is your
Did you bill it at your legal rate? Did you bill this at your legal rate for sending these all around and receiving and reading these?
I don't recall.
They would definitely be in the legal realm, would they not, Dr. Ritzi?
Yes. If you're referring to my consent.
And then look at deposition exhibit number 5. When you were out of the country, you were responding to Rob's emails and to Nikki's emails, were you not?
Okay, give us a chance to read it, please. Thank you.
All right. Now, she's writing you here on August the 5th, and you're on vacation out of the country, right?
Yes.
And you didn't tell her not to try to build a case. You responded to her emails where she's telling you, Logan said Daddy said he was going to hurt Underdog Kennels, our business. Logan asked me if I thought his dad is a scam artist. Of course, I said no. He said he was worried I was going to get run over again. He dreamt that Rob had an infected tooth. It was a very upsetting night for him. I just held him as he cried and told him everything will be okay. I don't know if this is coming out because of the escalation of his dad being more controversial in front of us lately. We're looking forward to when you get back. Have a wonderful trip. Now, why were you carrying on this dialogue with her when you were out of the country?
I don't understand the question. I mean, as a therapist, at times, if I see a client in distress, I may reach out.
Well, do you understand asymmetrical relationships with clients? You had a very different relationship with Mr. Cottingham than you did with Rob and Nikki No, didn't you?
Not initially.
Well, but you did, didn't you? They did not get the same treatment, did they?
Yes, I both treated them equally in the beginning.
You cannot say, Dr. Ritzi, that you were treating them equally, where you were asking for HIPAA releases for her lawyers and telling him not to have his lawyer contact you. That is not equal treatment, is it?
I don't believe that's accurate.
Well, you're saying here, you're telling this court and jury and anyone else who's interested that you treated these parties equally.
Yes.
All the way through.
When Mr. Crockett was in my office and coming in having sessions, I treated them equally. It wasn't until Mr. Crockett was continually copying me on lots of emails and demanding that I respond in a certain way that the relationship, I felt strained.
Now, Mr. Crockett, after you accused him of stalking, didn't contact you anymore, did he?
I never accused him of stalking.
Well, after the stalking allegation of him being there at your office, he never contacted you anymore after that, did he?
I don't recall when that was.
Did he contact you anymore after that situation on the stalking? All right, and you kept inviting him back to your office, didn't you?
No.
You did not invite him in writing to come and talk with you about Lauriston?
I didn't invite him to come to my office. I offered to connect with him.
You didn't offer to have him come in and talk. That's your testimony under oath.
The email that I'm recalling,
Just answer the question, ma'am, if you can.
Objection! Allow her to finish answering your question.
What was on the chalkboard, ma'am? If you could just tone it down a little bit, please.
Please allow her to answer the question, okay?
I want her to answer the question that is asked. Dr. Ritzi, did you ever write and suggest that Mr. Crockett come to your office and see you?
Did she ever say that?
After the stalking incident, did you continue?
I don't.
Ma'am, don't cackle. It is very unprofessional. And Dr. Ritzi, would you please answer the question?
I don't recall because I don't have the dates that you're referring to, and so it's hard for me to answer the question vaguely because I know that there was a time that I had continually tried to reach out to Mr. Crockett to invite him still in the process.
And Dr. Ritzi, you understand, of course, Mr. Crockett wrote to you and told you in writing that two different professionals had discussed countertransference and transference with him. Do you recall that letter?
I don't recall.
You know what countertransference is, do you not?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've said that you are afraid of Mr. Crockett. You established that pretty early on, didn't you?
In court, they asked if I was fearful or something to that degree.
And you've said over and over that you're fearful, haven't you?
I don't believe I've said over and over.
Dr. Ritzi, is it ethical to continue to see a parent's child if you are in fear of the parent?
Yes.
Yes.
And can you tell the court why transference or countertransference would not apply if you are fearful of the parent? You're claiming the child is afraid of his father.
I don't believe that I have showed the client that there have been times that I have been fearful of Mr. Crockett.
Well, isn't that a subconscious thing, Dr. Ritzi? Fear?
I don't understand.
You don't understand transference and countertransference?
I don't understand the question.
Why is countertransference and transference a prohibited? Why is it not ethical for people who are in fear of a parent to treat the parent's child?
Objection to form.
You know?
That's an incorrect statement.
Objection form, ma'am. Please play by the rules.
Objection form.
Dr. Ritzi, is it ethical for a professional who has fear of a parent to treat that parent's child?
Objection to form.
You can answer.
If you know.
I think that's such a vague question. I mean, there's so many other stipulations that it
At all.
surface. No, it's not unethical.
It's not unethical. And can you cite me in your ethical rules of conduct where it says it is okay that you don't have to withdraw when you have a conflict and have fear of a parent?
Objection.
I don't believe that's in the my rules that if I have fear of a parent that I shouldn't see the child.
And that's what you believe?
I don't recall that wording in the rules.
Well, have you read them recently?
Yes.
Now, have you made any recommendations? Now, you were contacted about by Miss Nikki No about Mr. Crockett seeing his son at Christmas, were you not?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Nikki No contacted you about seeing about visitation at Christmas, didn't she, for Mr. Crockett?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat just the question? I'm having a hard time following your question.
Did Nikki No ask you for a recommendation about whether Mr. Crockett should be able to visit with his son at his home?
I don't recall her asking me for a recommendation.
Did you make a recommendation?
What I recall, I didn't make a recommendation. I recalled various ways to handle whatever she decided.
What did you tell her?
I don't have the email in front of me or the note in front of me. However, from what I recall, that she needed to ensure that she doesn't allow anything going on for her to affect, not to say anything negative about the dad, that she needs to be mindful of giving the child a choice.
You told her that her fear could be transmitted to the child, didn't you? That her fear of Mr. Crockett.
If it's in the email, sounds like something I would say.
Well, why wouldn't your fear be transmittable to the child as well, Dr. Ritzi?
As a mental health professional, my role is in the session with my client and be working with my client in that role.
Now, when Miss No was just, back in on August 10th, where she was, look at deposition exhibit number 23. Have you read it? Have you read number 23, Dr. Ritzi?
Yes.
Now, she's writing you again while you're still out of the country. Is that correct?
I don't remember the exact dates that I was gone, but.
Well, you said you were gone between August 1st and August the 18th. So August the 11th would fall into that parameter, would it not?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you're telling Dr. Ritzi, and again, why were you calling her about it? Or why was she calling you about it? Or contacting you about the court can find me in contempt. I don't care. The safety of my family is paramount to me right now. I'm sure everyone in El Paso wishes someone had acted before it's too late. We are not even staying at home. We're staying at a hotel.
Objection to form.
Do you see that?
Not everything you just read.
Well, would you like to take your time and read it? August 10th, 2019, 10:14 a.m. to you.
Okay.
And what did she want you to do then?
I'm not sure what she was wanting me to do.
Now, did you get an email from her on August 12th after all of this drama and all of this hellfire and brimstone saying, I haven't heard a peep out of him? Do you recall that?
Vaguely remember that email.
I haven't heard a peep out of him. And all of this postal and killing everybody and you've got to call the judge at home, all of that was a big nothing, wasn't it?
Objection to form.
What has Mr. Crockett done since August 2019 to put anybody in fear, Dr. Ritzi?
Objection to form.
What has he done that you know of or have been told?
Can I ask a quick question? When someone says objection to form, that
means you answer the question.
Okay. Can you repeat the question then?
Yes. What, since August 2019, What has Mr. Crockett done to place anybody in fear?
Objection to form.
Or you've been told that he's done?
I don't recall anyone telling me he's done anything in reference to what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I'm asking about terroristic threats. I'm asking about violence. I'm asking about causing anybody to be in fear of their life. What?
Nothing like that has been reported to me.
And yet, let me ask you this. Did Nikki know when you began seeing Lauriston tell you that she was sleeping with her child in his lower bunk?
I don't recall.
Well,
I know I came to understand this later, but I don't remember when
she didn't tell you, did you?
I don't remember when I learned of that.
You learned basically when we pointed it out to you in court, didn't you?
I don't recall.
In a lower bunk bed with an 8-year-old child about to turn 9. You learned that in court.
Asked and answered.
Objection to form.
Didn't you, Dr. Ritzi?
Objection to asked and answered. She says she doesn't recall.
Oh, now. Dr. Ritzi, did you tell Nikki no? Had she discussed it with you many times and you told her that it was okay for her to sleep in the bed with him?
I believe that's out of context. What we're talking about was, with everything else going on, a child's sleep is important. And if he's being stressed out because he can't sleep, then they need to work towards him being able to sleep alone.
Well, and that had been going on for nearly 2 years when you found out about it, hadn't it?
I don't know the times or dates or how long.
Well, if the whole time that she's lived with Mr. Cottingham, he has slept in the bed with her, she has slept in the child's bed, in the lower bunk bed with the child. That is an issue, isn't it?
Objection to form.
The question is, I'm not sure how to answer.
Rephrase that. If she has, since she moved in with Rob Cottingham in 2017, slept in the lower bunk bed with Lauriston Crockett IV, is that something that you, as the therapist, should know?
I would like to know if the child's having sleep issues and unable to help himself fall asleep at night.
Objection, non-responsive. Do you think it's an issue that he is sleeping in a lower bunk bed with his mother for 2.5 years?
Been answered. Objection to form. She already answered it.
Objection to form.
Can you answer that, Dr. Ritzi?
She already answered it. Let's move along.
Not the witness, ma'am. Dr. Ritzi, is that an issue that you, as the therapist, the child's therapist, should be aware of?
I would hope that if a child is having a hard time self-soothing to fall asleep at night, that they would share that with me.
Did she share it with you?
At some point, yes. I just don't know when.
What point?
Objection to form.
Now, you do know that she made a very large issue claiming that the child slept with Mr. Crockett, didn't she?
I recall her saying that.
And then, do you recall her saying that when asked about why she was sleeping with the child, because Mr. Crockett have made it that way? Do you recall her saying that?
I don't recall.
Now, Ms. Hayes asked you back in January when we were at the hearing, you stated he loves both of his parents and he wants both of his parents to be pleased with him. Do you think he loves both of his parents?
Yes.
Well, what has happened with the father that he loved?
Objection to form.
I'm not following your question. I'm sorry.
Oh, you stated here earlier today that he didn't even want to have lunch in the park or dinner in the park with his father because he's scared of him. That was your testimony, is that right?
That's what he said.
Does that sound like alienation to you, Dr. Ritzi?
I'm unable to know where or why I quoted what he said.
Now, Mr. Crockett is not being supervised because he has a drug habit, a violence habit, a drinking habit, anything like that, is he?
Objection to form.
I don't know.
Alienation is the charge, isn't it?
Objection to form.
Why is he being supervised?
Objection to form.
The court says.
But on what basis? You're this child's therapist and have been for over 2 years, and you don't know why the father's being supervised?
I don't know the decision, the specific reasons of where the court.
One of the reasons, according to Miss Frendel, is that he was seen stalking at your office. Do you think that had something to do with it originally?
Objection to form.
Objection to form. She doesn't know what's in the social study evaluation.
Well, I differ with you. She does.
She's never read the social study evaluation. She's never seen a copy of it.
Ma'am, you are totally out of line.
Well, that's accurate.
No, ma'am.
Did you find a copy of the evaluation in her notes?
Please, ma'am, just stick to the rules and please keep your face off the screen and tone your voice down. And stop, you're making very improper snickering and sound effects. Now, okay, yeah, here's one that I wanted you to review. Deposition exhibit number 6. March 6, 2020. Yes. Have you read it, Dr. Ritzi?
Yes.
Now, what was she contacting you about on March the 6th for this, you called it family psychotherapy?
That's the billing code.
Well, are you treating anyone in that family other than the child?
No.
Now, mother requested to speak to the therapist. Learning child reported that he was hurt while playing hockey. Previous event that resulted in medical dispute between mother and father. Mother stated that during stepfather's deposition, stepfather learned that client stated he was hurt while playing hockey, and mother requested to discuss the client lying and overall telling multiple stories regarding how he was bruised. Therapist and mother discussed distance between the incident and learning about what was said and discussed possible reasons why children lie. Now, Dr. Ritzi, who was the first person here, going back to April the 22nd, 2019, who questioned that child first?
I don't know who questioned him first.
Well, did you not learn that Rob Cottingham first questioned him?
I don't recall.
Well, do you think it's important? And Nikki questioned him. And then the police questioned him.
Is that a question or a statement?
I'm asking if she's aware of that. It is a question, ma'am.
I don't recall the order of events.
Well, you recall when he got to you the next day.
Yes.
And then you questioned him. He told you he didn't want to talk
I
about it.
questioned him.
That child told you he didn't want to talk about it, didn't he, Dr. Ritzi?
That's correct.
And could you imagine why he doesn't, was it easy to understand why he didn't want to talk about it anymore?
I don't know.
Well, if he's been questioned until 11 o'clock the night before, and questioned by Rob Cottingham beforehand, and Nikki No beforehand, and then by you, don't you think he's pretty worn out?
I imagine that he would tell me how he felt, and he said he didn't want to talk about it.
And he has told you he doesn't want to talk about his father, hasn't he?
Yes.
In your notes at least a dozen times, I don't want to talk about it.
That's correct.
He doesn't feel safe talking about his father with you, does he?
Objection to form.
I don't know his reason for not wanting to talk about his father.
Well, he has never wanted to, has he?
He has recently, and he has in the past. It just, some sessions he didn't want to.
What has changed recently?
Objection to form.
What has changed recently that he's now willing to talk about his father?
Objection to form.
I don't know. There's could be lots of different.
Now, this father is supervised for the last 10 months at Hannah's house, hasn't he been?
I believe so.
And there's somebody there writing down everything that is said or done.
My understanding.
And you have no way of knowing what is said to that child in that apartment that is occupied by Rob Cottingham and Nikki No, do you?
That's correct.
And you know that they have called him a con man, a pathological liar. They've said that he has all kinds of mental disorders. And you have not seen any proof of any of that, have you?
I haven't evaluated Mr. Crockett.
No, and yet you've made recommendations about his access, haven't you?
Objection to form.
I don't believe I have.
Well, you've said here that he just when you were being questioned by Ms. Hayes, you said that he shuts down when you try to ask him about his father over the last several months. You said that, didn't you?
Yes, if it's in the records. I don't recall it specifically, but yes.
But you didn't have any physical concerns about him in the father's care.
No.
And you were asked, do you have concerns about the father having unsupervised access? You stated yes, didn't you?
I don't recall, but if it's in the record, yes, then I said that.
And you said, what are the basis of your concern? Hearing negative things about the mother. Now, do you believe, can you tell this court and jury, it's going to be sitting there, that you think they don't say negative things about Crockett, the third in that home?
I can't, I don't know what they say in their home.
Now, she also asked you, have you felt threatened in this case? Yes. Can you tell the court why? Well, in certain interactions when I don't agree, or whenever he wanted me to email something, he would become frustrated, his voice would become strained, and his emails would become more aggressive than I'm used to when working with parents. Now, Dr. Ritzi, you're a grown woman. How old are you?
I'm 48.
And you have a PhD.
Yes.
And somebody, if their emails are more aggressive than you're used to when dealing with parents, That puts you in fear?
In this situation, yes.
And you, Ms. Hayes was asking you about a toxic relationship between the father and child. And by Ms. Hayes, you've indicated you have concerns about the father having unsupervised contact with the child. Can you tell the judge why? If it's just an emotional and psychological, can you tell the judge why you're afraid? And you did. You said the child is scared of his father being displeased with him. Well, that's not being physically afraid of the father, is it?
No.
And you were asked as an expert, do you believe that impairs the emotional development? Do you recall what you said?
Not off the top of my head.
You stated yes. It's on page 19, line 25. And then she asked you, has the child ever made any allegations of physical abuse because of his father? No. Have you ever asked the child about physical abuse by his father? Yes. Now that would have been when he was brought to you for you to extract or massage information out of him on April the 23rd, wouldn't it? 2019.
I don't recall specifically what was.
Well, that was when you questioned him about physical abuse, didn't you?
I don't believe I questioned him. I believe I don't remember exactly what I had asked him. And he told me. I can look at the note again.
Can you give it?
We'll move on. Just please, not that voice. Now, you admitted, and the record does reflect that counsel for Ms. Ritzi finds this to be very amusing. Dr. Ritzi, now, you did agree back in January that after the August 9th hearing, the child was very upset and his whole world had turned upside down, hadn't it? You stated yes then. Has your answer changed?
Can you give me a little bit more context? I remember
The question was, you don't have to remember, I'm looking at page 21.
Do I have what you're looking at?
I don't know if you would or not, but I've got your sworn testimony in court. And you stated, I asked you, the child was very upset. His whole world had turned upside down. You said yes. He was taken out of the school he had attended for 4 years. Yes. And he was taken away from his father, whom you acknowledge he loves. Yes. You haven't actually seen them together, have you? And you said that you had, but you have not evaluated them together, have you?
No.
Have you had any sessions, any professional sessions where you watched this father and son together?
No.
Have you had any sessions where you have watched the mother and son together?
No.
Now, do you think that it was important for you, since you had made the statement there in court in August 2019 before the judge about Mr. Crockett having been seen at your office, that you owed it to the court to clear that up?
Can you rephrase, or I'm not understanding the question?
Well, you did give the court information in August 2019 that Mr. Crockett had been seen at your office there without an appointment. And this was an atmosphere when everybody was in fear of Mr. Crockett, wasn't it?
If I remember correctly, yes.
And when you learned later that he told you he wasn't there, he asked for a chance to clear it up. And this was you didn't even say when he was accused of doing it until this hearing in January, did you?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time following your question.
I'll be glad to repeat it, Dr. Ritzi.
Sir, just a second. She wants to speak with her attorney.
Please do it quietly.
Hey, Mary, I know they're visiting, but is there any chance we could take like a 3-minute restroom break?
Yes. Yes.
Back on the record at 3:26 p.m.
All right, Dr. Ritzi, you recall that you were given a hypothetical back on January the 15th, assuming that the mother has stated she wants the child out of the father's life. This is a hypothetical. That when he filed to modify back in 2018, she decided the father should be excluded by any means necessary. Would you consider that a healthy relationship? And you said that would not be healthy. Do you still feel that would not be a healthy relationship?
I think I would say, I think it's important for children to have as many people in their lives that love them. And so I think there's other things that can go with, like if there's more details to that hypothetical, because there could be
to non-reasons. Let me ask you this. Have you seen any evidence that Nikki No wants this father to be a part of her child's life?
Yes.
Tell the court what it is.
In times in which she and I have talked about, I think it's important for the child to have connection with both parents. And
that's you talking. What connection is she allowed? Now, at Hannah's house, she did not want him to take pictures, did not want any pictures to be shown to the child, no phone calls, no money given to him, no games on video, nothing. Now,
Objection to form. Hey, can you refer me to an exhibit, Mary?
just,
I can't hear you.
I'm not saying anything. I'm waiting till the screeching stops.
Are you referring to one of your exhibits?
I was.
Okay, can you tell me the number?
It's the Hannah's house. I don't see the number on there.
Okay.
I'll ask a different question. Now, you know that she wrote you wanting him to leave Hannah's house and wanting to go back to FLP. Is that right?
I recall an email to that. I don't remember exactly which email.
She wasn't happy. Hannah's house. She didn't want him to have 4 hours a week at Hannah's house, did she?
She didn't, she was worried. She shared with me that she was worried about the length of time.
The length of time, 4 hours a week, she was worried about, right?
Oh, I misunderstood your question. From what she shared with me, she was worried about the length of time being in one setting.
That what?
It would be in one setting, like 4 hours straight or 3 hours straight. It was something.
I told you it was 4 hours straight.
I don't recall. I don't have the thing. I just remember it.
I don't mean to talk over you, but you said she was worried about the length of time. He had 4 hours per week, 2 on Thursday nights, and evening 5 to 7, and 2 hours on Saturday. And she thought that was too much time for a father to be with his son. Is that right?
I don't recall her saying that was too much time regarding those hours.
And she wanted him out of Hannah's house. She didn't want him to be able to see him there. Is that right?
I remember her talking about that she was not satisfied with Hannah's house.
And do you recall Mr. Crockett making a complaint at Hannah's house?
I don't know one.
Who's been parenting this child for the last few months, Miss Ritzi? Has it been Nikki No or Rob Cottingham?
I don't know what happens in their home.
Well, do you talk about it with him, with the child?
I talk about what he wants to talk about, and he talks about both of them.
Well, you pressed him on my client almost every session. You would ask him about his father, and he would not want to talk to you about it.
Objection to form.
Do you acknowledge that, Dr. Ritzi?
I would ask him, how was his time with his father?
And he would say, and just for the record, if counsel, we can hear you say objection to form. You do not have to put your full face in the camera. Anyway.
Thank you. I don't think we've really gotten guidelines for Zoom depositions. So
we'll be getting them, but believe me, it's not something that we need here.
Well, I'm not really sure that Mary McKnight is deciding what we need here. So
well, we're going on with the deposition. If you will remove your face, I'd like to hear your point. Now, what arrangements has Nikki No made? What has she agreed to for Lorson Crockett III to be with his son since Betty died? Betty Stone at Hannah's house.
Objection to form.
I don't know.
Are you aware if he's even seen his son?
I don't know when the last time, the actual date, and I know he hadn't seen him for a while because of the owner of Hannah's house had died, and they were.
Have you talked to Vicki Alexander yourself?
I spoke with Vicki Alexander briefly. I don't remember the exact date.
How long ago?
I'd have to look at my notes. A couple weeks.
Weeks ago, months ago, days ago?
Weeks. Couple weeks.
All right. And what was the occasion? What was the discussion?
That they had not set up they were trying to set it up at FLP, and that Vicki said she had offered to see Logan outside of FLP, and had Logan talked about that with me, like if that would be something that Logan had mentioned to me.
Well, did you talk to Logan about it, or did Vicki talk to Logan about it?
I don't know what Vicki talked.
I said earlier that in your notes that Vicki, in the notes that you were talking about from your May 28th session, that Vicki Alexander had talked to him and that he did not want to have a picnic with his dad because he was afraid of it?
I quoted him.
Pardon?
I quoted the child.
Now, Miss Ritzi, when you're writing things down, you don't record them. You don't have a recording of any of this, do you?
No.
Or a video. It's you write down what you say the child said.
Yes.
Did this child tell Vicki Alexander that he did not want, that he was afraid of his dad and did not want to have dinner with him?
I can only write down what the child told me he said.
Did you call Vicki Alexander and verify that?
No.
Did Vicki Alexander send you anything in writing that verified that this child did not even want to see his father?
No.
Yes or no?
I said no.
And do you think this child has been damaged by this whole ordeal, Miss Ritzi?
Damaged is a strong word.
Well, you stated before that you felt he had.
I think that that a child who doesn't have, that feels caught in the middle, it can be detrimental to a child.
In your notes, and I won't burden our record or time that's going into them, over and over, the child tells you if he could have anything he wants, he would want his parents to be friends again, doesn't he?
He's said that on a few occasions.
At least 4 or 5 that you've written down, hasn't he?
I don't know the number, but I know he's stated that.
Even recently, he said that if he could have any wish, it would be for his parents to have, to be friends again.
Yes.
And Mr. Cottingham has written you and told you and complained that Mr. Crockett parked so as to harass him, didn't he?
Yes, he sent me an email regarding an incident that they had.
And he said that he parked to harass him and that he was in fear of his life, didn't he? You remember that?
I don't remember the specific wording, but I recall the email.
And do you believe that Mr. Cottingham supports the relationship between Larson Crockett and his son?
I can't speak to that.
Now, Dr. Ritzi, you spent a great deal of time and effort trying to facilitate Mr. Crockett being able to participate in Larson's hockey, didn't you?
Can you repeat the question?
2019.
Could you repeat the question?
You spent a lot of time and effort trying to facilitate Larson Crockett being able to participate in his son's hockey, didn't you?
I tried to help the parents come to an agreement that they can both attend the child's practice at the same time, or at least go to practice.
What Mr. Crockett, not the mother, it was Mr. Crockett, wrote to you saying, after much deliberation, and it's one of our exhibits here, I'll find it. After much deliberation, we have decided that we do not want Mr. Crockett to come to any of the hockey events, didn't he?
I recall that email.
And that was after you had been, they had been telling you that Crockett wouldn't come and Crockett wouldn't cooperate. And then when you set it up, they said we don't want him there, didn't they?
Section of form.
Didn't they?
I don't recall exact order. Both sides backed out of actually.
Both sides. How did Mr. Crockett back out?
Please allow her to finish the question.
From what I recall, Mr. Crockett told me that he decided that he didn't want to go, so that way he didn't cause any stress on the child.
Well, do you recall any incident where Mr. Cottingham stirred up some stress with Mr. Crockett there when he had attempted to attend?
I wasn't there. I know that there was several things going on between them, that they were both reporting, or all three of them were reporting difficulty attending his practices.
Oh, here we are. Deposition Exhibit 41.
41.
Where he says, today Mr. Crockett parked in front of the door even though there were no cars parked along the street.
Can you give us
parked at a different spot?
Please? We can't find it yet. Can you give us a minute, please, to find the exhibit?
Oh, here we are. There's the original. Yeah, this one, I think.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, what was the last one we were talking about?
Exhibit 41.
Yes, here we are. Now, you responded to Mr., even though you were either on vacation or about to leave for vacation, you responded to Mr. Cottingham, didn't you?
Yes.
And Mr. Cottingham had told you he parked in a different spot so he could harass him, didn't he?
That's what the email states.
And then he claimed that Mr. Crockett said to him, he said that he was afraid for his life, but he said he parked there so he could harass me. When I opened the door, he shouted, "Keep smiling, you fucking liar." And I went back immediately inside because I'm in fear of this person. Do you see that?
Yes.
Well, if he was in fear of him, and as he says on the next page, a fear of his life, why would he be smiling at him?
I don't know.
Keep smiling, you fucking liar. And he misspelled liar.
Section of form.
Did it make sense to you why he would be smiling at him if he was so in fear?
I'm not assessing for what's happening for.
Why were you playing along with this, Dr. Ritzi?
Section of form.
I don't believe I was playing along. I was trying to help the parents.
Help which parent?
All of, in this case, it would have been.
Trying to help Mr. Crockett.
Please allow her to finish the answer.
After reading this, I'm sorry?
How were you trying to help Mr. Crockett?
I was trying to help the child to not feel caught in the middle, to be protected from being caught in the middle.
And how do you achieve that? You haven't so far, have you?
I don't know. I don't know what happens outside of my presence.
And you certainly don't, do you?
No.
You don't know what they say or do to that little boy once they get in there in that third floor apartment, do you?
Section of form.
I don't know what happens when he's outside of my office.
Well, where you know there is a long history of hatred and hostility, the mother against the father, don't you?
Yes, there's been a lot of hostility among all of the parties.
And Mr. Cottingham came along and just fanned the flames, didn't he?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Was he antagonistic toward Mr. Crockett?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Well, what is your sense of it? You've been working with this child for 2 years. Do you have a sense of whether Mr. Cottingham is antagonistic toward the child's father?
I don't know. That's not in my role.
Well, do you step out of your role, Dr. Ritzi?
I don't understand the question.
Well, now you certainly become just almost daily pen pals with Crockett, with Cottingham and Nikki No, haven't you?
Section of form.
That was.
Go ahead. That was what?
That was in the beginning. Everyone was, all parties. Well, definitely Mr. Crockett and Miss No were sending me lots of emails, and I would reply when I felt like I could be helpful in helping them parent their child.
Big difference in your replies, wasn't there, Dr. Ritzi?
I don't think so.
Well, the jury will see them. And you have you written any? Can you recall any that you wrote admonishing Nikki No and Mr. Cottingham not to use you to build a case?
Yes, I mean I know I said it, and I imagine that it's in my emails someplace because I've told both of them.
Well, I will tell you, you may have told them, but I've scoured your emails, believe me, and I see nothing. In fact, you were sending HIPAA releases to their lawyers. And how did you respond? Did you feel when you received that email, copied on it from Mr. Whidden on April 22nd, did you feel it was appropriate for you to respond to an email suggesting that you massage or extract information from a child?
Section
What
of
number is that you're referring to? I don't remember.
I believe it's 1.
One. Okay, thank you.
I could be wrong.
It's 1.
Okay.
Oh, this one, okay. All right, thank you for giving us a minute.
Re-ask the question, sorry.
The question was that it was inappropriate in any way for you as the child's therapist to respond to that suggestion that you massage or extract information from your 8-year-old client.
I don't believe I was responding to that suggestion.
Well, you made an appointment that same day and you questioned him, didn't you?
They asked me that my child was.
Objection, non-responsive. Dr. Ritzi, did you make an appointment that same day after receiving that email around 11 o'clock that morning?
I don't recall the exact time, but I did make an appointment and I did see the child.
The same day. And did you question the child? Did you question him?
I asked him some questions, yes.
And you asked him about the events that he had been questioned about the night before, didn't you?
I don't know what was exactly asked the night before. I asked if he knew. Can I look at my note?
Let me read this just a second.
It looks like it's 1 o'clock.
Okay, thank you for the minute.
And the question was, do you feel as the therapist for this 8-year-old child that that you responded appropriately to Mr. Whitten's email asking you to extract or massage information out of him?
I do not feel I was responding to whatever Mr. Whitten's email.
Did you feel it was appropriate for you to continue to question him after you knew he had been questioned the night before?
I don't believe I was questioning him about.
Objection, non-responsive. Did you question him? You did question him, didn't you?
Objection, please let her finish her answers.
Oh, please, please. She did finish it, and please stop screeching on the record.
She didn't finish her answer. Perhaps you didn't hear it because you were talking over her. I'm sitting right next to her, and I can hear that she's continuing to answer while you start to ask your question.
You are continuing to blither. Please let your client talk.
That's what I would like to have happen. So please do not talk over her answers.
And you be quiet and go by the rules. This conduct is sanctionable.
Could you repeat the question?
No.
Okay, I can't. So much has happened between then. I'm not sure.
Your attorney has interrupted the whole flow. And what I heard you say was you did not feel that you did anything inappropriate as the court-appointed therapist for a young child in responding and questioning him again on April the 23rd at 5:30 p.m.
I don't feel like I did anything inappropriate.
And you would do the same thing all over again.
If I had the information that I had up to that point, yes.
And when you had admitted back in January of this year that you had no reason to believe Mr. Crockett was a physical threat to this child, why were you just catering or pandering to Mr. Whitten's demand?
I wasn't replying to Mr. Whitten.
Objection to form.
But you did what he asked, didn't you?
I was
Objection to form.
You did what he asked, didn't you, sir?
I don't know what he asked. The mother asked for an appointment and I scheduled an appointment.
Now, are you familiar with the mother's diagnoses?
No.
You've been told the father has all kinds of diagnoses, haven't you? What have you been told about the father by the mother or Mr. Cottingham?
I don't recall.
Well, have you been told that he has agoraphobia?
I recall that being mentioned to me in the beginning.
And that he's a con man?
I recall it being in emails.
And that the mother can't wait to see him burn in hell, and then Logan's name can be Logan No?
Objection to form.
I don't recall that.
And the father has a lot of judgments against him and multiple lawsuits?
I don't recall that.
Did either Mr. Cottingham or Nikki ever show you any verification of any of the allegations that they had made against Mr. Crockett?
What allegations are you referring to?
The ones we just discussed. They show you any diagnosis from anybody of any mental illnesses that he has, like Munchausen's by proxy or agoraphobia or a narcissistic personality disorder?
I haven't been shown any documentation that says
Any
that he has.
diagnosis from anybody?
I'm sorry?
Did they show you any diagnosis from any professional?
I don't recall.
Well, do you believe that Mr. Cottingham is truthful?
I don't know how to answer that question. Do I believe he's truthful? Mr. Rob Cottingham's truthful?
Yes.
I don't know if it's I don't know about that.
Well, Dr. Ritzi, when you get down to it, truth does matter, doesn't it?
It does. I just feel like everyone has their own perspective.
Alternate facts, Dr. Ritzi? Alternative facts? Dr. Ritzi, now you stated in your testimony that you would not let the parties discuss whether or not Mr. Mr. Crockett pulled her out of a car and ran over her in 2013. Is that right?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again?
You said that you would not let them discuss whether or not Mr. Crockett was guilty of pulling her out of a car and causing her to be run over in 2013. Is that right?
I asked both parties to not, that was being litigated, and I asked both parties to leave me out of that.
Dr. Ritzi, you think think it's important? You said you've seen Dr. Bolter's report that says that she disassociates. Miss Nikki disassociates because she is so in fear of Mr. Crockett. Have you seen that?
I don't recall. I don't know if it's someone just shared. I don't recall.
Well, if she is so in fear of Mr. Crockett that she disassociates, isn't it kind of important whether that's based on reality or a mental disorder?
I'm not there to assess the mom. I don't have any anything to assess the mom on. I'm not.
Everybody's been assessing the dad. Now, you did receive, and you have in your file, 2 polygraph exams that he took and passed voluntarily, don't you?
Okay, hold on just a second. I need to discuss.
Do you not, Dr. Ritzi?
Excuse me. I'm going to talk with my client.
Huh?
Excuse me. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Dr. Ritzi, you did receive copies of the 2 polygraphs that he took with Eric Holden on issues of whether or not he had anything to do with her car accident in 2013 and whether he had abused her or not ever, didn't you?
Somebody emailed that to me.
Did you read them?
Yes.
Well, have you seen any polygraph exams or anything verifying Miss No's version of the story, that she has recovered her memory in 2018 and he pulled her out of a moving vehicle and caused her to be run over and then jumped in the car and stopped it? Has anybody verified that version for you?
I'm unsure of the question. No.
Did you receive any police reports or anything that supports Miss No's story?
No.
Have you talked to Dr. Bolter?
No.
Do you know if she's still seeing Dr. Bolter?
I don't know.
Have you questioned it?
Have I questioned
Whether or not she is getting counseling?
No, I haven't questioned her if she's receiving counseling.
Now, if she is so in fear of Mr. Crockett that she disassociates when he is mentioned or around, that is not a healthy situation for this young child, is it?
I don't feel like I can assess the mom.
Well, I'm just asking you to look at facts. Either if he did pull her out of the car and run over her, it's important whether that is a fact or a fantasy, isn't it? And how this boy reacts to his mother disassociating when she's confronted with even talking about the father.
I'm sorry,
I'll rephrase that. How in the world can you provide meaningful therapy to this child and not address that issue, Dr. Ritzi? The issue of whether or not the father is a monster who tried to kill the mother, or the mother is either delusional or deliberately lying. Those are the 3 options.
I don't question, that's not how therapy works with a child, how I conduct therapy with a child.
Well, how's it working for you so far? How's the kid doing?
You're asking for his progress up to now, or I need a more specific question, I guess.
This child is still very, very anxious, isn't he?
He has not been as anxious recently.
And you've always said that. Every report I've seen, you've said, oh, his anxiety is doing much better. And then you're trying to soothe him and get him able to sleep alone at 9 years old. Does he sleep alone all night now?
I don't know.
Well, isn't that one of the things you're working on?
Yes.
A 9-year-old, a very smart 9-year-old who is perceptive, who is intelligent, can't sleep alone without being self-soothed or having his mother go to bed with him. Now that's problematic, isn't it?
I would like for a child to be able to
Is that problematic or not? Not what you would like. Is that problematic?
There are other the question is, if there's other problems going on, that may be the lesser of my concern.
I can't hear you.
It's hard for me to answer that question because if there's other factors happening, that may be the lesser of my concern.
Okay, and what other factors, like the father and the stepfather, the mother and the stepfather hate the father and want him out of the child's life? Would that be a concerning factor?
It's a concerning factor that if anyone is putting the child in the middle.
Well, and you think this child hasn't been put in the middle and kept in the middle?
There are times in which he's been caught, a lot of times he's been caught in the middle.
Well, like from the day he was born?
I'm not able to, I don't know how to answer that question.
Now, you know that, did Nikki know ever tell you that she wanted Mr. Cottingham to adopt her son?
I don't recall.
Well, isn't that something you would remember?
This is not necessarily, this is such a large case with so much information. I don't know what I would and wouldn't remember.
Well, have you read Nikki No's deposition?
No.
Did she tell you numerous times that she was sleeping in the bunk bed with her son and that you said that's all right? It's fine?
I don't recall that.
And that she wants Mr. Crockett, she wants Mr. Cottingham to adopt the child when something happens to Mr. Crockett. Is that a healthy attitude?
I'm not sure of the question.
If Mrs. No, in her sworn deposition, has said that it would be good for Mr. Cottingham to adopt Lauriston IV when something happens to Mr. Crockett, is that a healthy attitude?
I think, no. I'm still confused by the question. I don't think it's a healthy attitude for a child not to have as many people in their life that love him.
Well, what avenue do you see if Miss No is allowed to continue as she is now? What avenue do you see for this father having time with his son?
That's not in my, that's not in my, well, it's not in my role to say.
But you, on the record here, recommended supervision, didn't you?
I answered, I don't recall recommending.
Look at it again, but
Yeah.
Chris, did you object just then?
do what?
There's nothing coming through when you're talking.
Check her.
So quickly that
Oh.
I think it mutes me when somebody else is talking. Oh, you know what? I have a form. Do you see that? Would that help you, Christy?
Well, it won't come through on the video, but just when it's not coming through like it was. Your audio isn't. It was clear. Now it's not.
Can figure out.
Can I go back? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, depends on.
My client needs to take a break for just a minute, make a phone call.
Go ahead.
We're off the record at 4:09 p.m. Back on the record at 4:15 p.m.
Dr. Ritzi, at any point in time, did you discern that Mr. Cottingham was in fact doing the communicating with you instead of Miss No?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Was there any time I was concerned?
Did you discern or pick up that it was Rob Cottingham doing the writing to you instead of Miss No?
I wasn't assessing for who was.
Well, did you see the difference in the writing style and in the comments?
I wasn't assessing for that.
Well, it didn't even occur to you, or you didn't notice it?
I didn't notice it.
Well, if he were doing the writing instead of her, do you think that would be significant? If he had taken over?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. I don't necessarily, if he was sending me a text versus if she was sending me a text or email.
Well, if he were composing it and writing it, for example, there's one letter that she wrote to you saying that Rob said that they were making fun basically of Mr. Crockett, saying Rob noticed that when he says goodbye to Larston, he sounds like a teenage girl, 13 years old, breaking up with their first boyfriend. Now, did you read that? Do you remember reading that?
Yes.
All right. Did you find that demeaning?
He wasn't saying it to the child, if I remember correctly. So I
saying it to you, and did you admonish him and saying that you are denigrating the father, you are ridiculing the father, to say he behaves like a teenage girl? And that was Cottingham saying that under Nikki's signature. But you remember it, don't you?
Actually, I do recall, I think it was in your deposition or that I had read that you had put that in there, but can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Did you write to Mr. Cottingham or Miss No and say that they were ridiculing and denigrating the father, to say he was behaving like a teenage girl who was broken up with her first boyfriend?
And can you tell me which
we can find the letter, but it's going to take it's there and it's in our deposition exhibits. Now
you asked me how I replied, and so I need to see it to respond to how I replied.
Well, you didn't reply. It was just one of those times when they were making fun of Mr. Crockett. And Deposition Exhibit 12 was when Mr. Crockett tells you, Mr. Cottingham tells you, after much deliberation, we've decided we do not want to encourage Mr. Crockett to attend Logan's hockey practice because we've been reminded of our prior experience at his soccer and karate. Now that was 4 years earlier. Did you make any note of that?
Make any note of? I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
He said, he wrote to you, we did discuss this with you when we met in person November 28th, but I guess you missed it. After much deliberation, we decided we did not want to encourage Mr. Crockett to attend Logan's hockey practices and games because we had that reminded of our prior experiences at Logan's soccer and karate. Now, did you realize or did you know that the soccer and karate was 4 years earlier?
No, I wasn't attributing. No, I didn't.
And you had been trying to facilitate Mr. Crockett participating. And then they just, we don't want it, didn't they? Mr. Cottingham did. And in the same letter, now, talk about parental alienation. In the same letter, Deposition Exhibit number 12, since Mr. Crockett seems incapable of telling the truth and cannot control his impulses to bash Nikki every opportunity, we are not encouraging Mr. Crockett to become involved any longer. Now, do you find that alienating?
If I remember correctly, I told them that it was important for both parents to go to figure out how they would both go to practice.
And have that work out.
From what I understood, they shared the hockey information with Mr. Crockett, and
then they made a big scene at the first hockey game he attended and took Larston home before he could play, didn't they?
I don't know, I wasn't there.
Well, you certainly got reports from both people, didn't you?
I'd have to, I don't recall. It's been.
And you basically became part of their team, didn't you? Their legal team, Dr. Ritzi.
No.
On deposition exhibit number 11. This was this is December the 3rd, 2019. I just got news that his attorney is withdrawing as his counsel, and you go, oh, wow. Did you think that was a professional, appropriate response? Oh, wow. Why were you so excited that his attorney was withdrawing?
I wasn't excited. I was surprised.
Well, why did you need to know? As the child's counselor, why was it important for her to notify you that same day that his counselor was withdrawing?
I don't know.
To me, it would seem that she kind of considered you part of their legal team.
Objection to form.
To know everything. And the first to respond, no matter how petty or how denigrating it was for Mr. Crockett. Do you have any emails where you told them to tone it down or to not insult him?
Objection to form.
Yes.
Could you direct me to them?
There's a lot of emails. I know when I was reading through emails, I saw emails in which I was like, do not put the child in the middle. Don't speak negatively of the father. I addressed it to both sides.
Very clear on the record for this, and I want to write it down as well. Now tell me again, what role Vicki Alexander had, if any, in being told that the child is afraid of his father and didn't want to have dinner with.
I'm sorry.
You did not talk to Vicki, right?
No, I had a phone call.
You had a phone call with Vicki?
A very brief.
And what was said in the phone call?
That I need to find my note.
Go ahead.
I'm still looking for the note. I know I had a conversation with her recently, just a brief conversation where we talked about, she said that she had offered the child to take him to see his dad outside of Hannah's house.
And did she say the child said he didn't want to? That's what I understood you to say earlier, that Vicki said.
I'm looking for my note. That's what I remember. That's why I'm looking for my note. please note, Amicus discuss clients move to new supervised visits location. Amicus stated she offered to meet client and father in an alternate location. The client reported he preferred to wait until visits began. Therapist stated that client also shared.
This is the court reporter. If you're going to read, I need you to speak where I can hear you or mute, please.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. She found the note.
All right. Would you please read it into the record, please, Dr. Ritzi?
Sure. Brief phone contact with Amicus. Discuss client's move to new supervised visits location. Amicus stated she offered to meet client and father in an alternate location, but the client reported he preferred to wait until FLP visits began. Therapist stated that client also shared with therapist that he preferred to only visit his father at FLP.
Okay, now, client reported, read that again. Client reported that he shared with his therapist. That would be you, right?
I'm going to read it over.
Read it over again. Get this right.
Brief phone contact with Amicus. Discuss client's move to new supervised visits location. Amicus stated she offered to meet client and father in an alternate location, but that client reported he preferred to wait until FLP visits began. Therapist stated that client also shared with therapist that he preferred to only visit his father at FLP.
Now, did he have such a discussion with you, Dr. Ritzi?
Yes.
When did he have that discussion with you? And in what date?
So that's like that. This was happening. That would be 27. This one. That's 26. It would have been this one. Okay. Could you re-ask the question? I'm sorry.
Yes. What date did he have the client?
You broke up.
What date did the child have this conversation with you that he did not want to see his father outside of FLP?
I don't know. I might be mixing up different sessions. I don't know when he actually said. I know he said that he wanted to, when he told me about Hannah's house originally, and that he had the session with Vicky, that Vicky was there.
Kind of an important statement by the child, and I would think you would record it and date it. And we do not have the notes of any such session.
Section of order.
Pardon?
There's an echo. I can only speak to what I put in my notes.
And what did you put in your notes again? And what date?
For which part?
We have those notes. We do not have them.
I sent them to you.
Go get Steve again. What date?
For what?
For the notes that you're reading there now.
The one that I was reading was the the 5/28 session.
And we do not have any notes for that session that say anything.
You don't have a copy of this note?
No, we do not. We have a question of you sending us a bill for your retainer.
I don't know what to say about that because it's what I see on my side that was shared with you.
Well, we don't have it, and
I don't know.
it's like all that was corrupted that we didn't get.
It was on the. Yeah, I thought that you found this note earlier. I can give you the name again of it.
Okay.
The name of the note says Progress Note 05-29 2020 12:59 a.m.
In other words, it was almost 1 in the morning.
Say that answer again, you cut out.
I work late hours. I'm a night owl.
Well, my dad scares me. But this is what you wrote down. There's no recording of it.
That's correct.
And you wrote it down on, let's see, created on May the 29th. Now, some of your notes, you will create them, you will have the interview or the session, and maybe a month later you will do the notes. Why is that?
It's the platform in which I write my notes. After sessions, I write more of a rough draft of the session before I put it into the formal form.
And your notes are all electronic, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you do any written notes?
They weren't before.
And do you know any reason why Vicki have given us this information?
I'm not sure what information.
No, Vicki had made an appointment to have a visit with Larson and his son, and she told us, she emailed us that she was caught in a mediation, a Zoom mediation, and could not go that night.
Objection of one.
And what's the question?
Were you aware that Nikki said she was in a Zoom mediation and could not supervise that night?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm sorry.
I'm referring to emails that Vicki Alexander sent us canceling the off-site visit because she was in a Zoom mediation that went late. She did not give us this information. Did you discuss it with Vicki?
Objection of one.
Yeah.
Did you discuss this information with Vicki?
What information?
That the child did not want to, he had told her he did not want to go with his father.
I'm confused. All I can do is tell you what I wrote in my note.
When did you have your last phone conversation with Vicki?
Sorry, I'm having to log on and out every time.
I have one last very important question.
That was May 27th.
And did Vicki Alexander tell you that she had talked to the child and the child told her that he didn't want to go with his dad?
Client said that he wanted to wait until FLP.
She told you that client said, this is what Vicki Alexander told you.
That's what's in my notes.
And that was on May the 27th.
Yes, ma'am.
At what time?
I have 9:30 and sometimes it's a roundabout. I don't,
9:30 a.m.
Yes.
on May the 27th. Vicki Alexander said she had offered to supervise off-site, but the child said he wanted to wait for FLP.
That's what I read. What I read you was that's what my notes say.
And when was that your last session with him, May the 28th?
Yes.
And did you have any interaction with the mother on that date?
Brief, she told me, she stated that I hadn't seen Dad due to the death of the owner of Hannah's house. And that the intake at the new location was successful.
Did she say anything else?
Can you read exactly what I wrote?
Yes.
Did you find the note yourself? Do you want me to read exactly? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. This is under the parent report or other data section. Mother stated that client still had not seen father due to death of owner of Hannah's house. open parentheses, where supervised visits were scheduled, close parentheses, and that the intake at the new location was successful. Mother stated that client reported feeling happy with new location. Mother reported that client expressed not wanting to visit father at a different location.
And have you had any further interaction with Vicki Alexander?
No. I think other than the informed consents after the new round of, or for this and the record request.
And I will ask you again, you feel, based on your expressing fear of the father, reporting to the court that he was seen at your office building, when he says he was not there, not following through and verifying, do you feel it is proper for you, considering transference, counter-transference, and just the ethics of your profession, to continue to see this child?
Objection of order.
I have fear at times. I feel that I can set that aside and attempt to work with both sides for the mental health of the client.
And neither side, I mean, are you telling this court and jury you think Rob Cottingham and Nikki No want to work with Larson Crockett on any level?
They have expressed that to me.
What have you seen? It's show and tell, but it's more show. What have they shown you in 2 years what have they done to demonstrate good faith and cooperation in 2 years' time?
Objection of order.
The example of the when you had referenced the hockey information, when they sent over the hockey equipment information when I stated that it was important for the child to have both parents. That would be
But the first game the father attended, they took the kid home without him playing, didn't they?
I don't know.
You didn't follow up and find out what happened?
I don't recall what happened, and I don't recall.
You recall any game where Larson Crockett was able to attend and see his child play?
He shared with me that there were practices, I believe. I'd have to. There's been just so much in the notes. I remember them talking about a practice. I don't know about the games. I don't recall.
And you have no idea what level of functioning as a parent Nikki No Cottingham is doing now, do you?
No.
Academically, socially, interacting? You do not know.
I'm not assessing for that, no.
What are you assessing?
The client's ability to feel happy, less anxious.
And you're saying this little boy is happy?
There are times that he is happy. It's the last several sessions he's been very excited and happy.
Happy. And the most important thing in the world to him, he could have anything he wanted, was to have his parents be friends again. His mother and his father, not Rob Cottingham, his mother and his father, wasn't it?
That was one of the things that he had mentioned in an activity or something he had mentioned.
Several times.
Yeah, he's mentioned that he would love for, he's mentioned in the past he wanted his parents to get back together. And I think the last time he mentioned that he wants them to be friends again.
And you think that you have done what do you think you have achieved with this little boy, Dr. Ritzi?
Can you ask a more specific question?
Well, don't you feel that the evidence will show here, all the emails, with all the text messages, with the actions, and with your testimony, that you have put your thumb on the scale in favor of the Cottinghams?
I don't believe my records show that.
You don't believe that?
I don't. No, when I've reread my notes, I don't believe that I have.
And you'll stand on that?
Yes, ma'am.
No other questions?
Officer.
We're off the record at 4:47 p.m.
Rick, you're muted. Rick, you're muted.
We're muted.
We're off the record at 4:47.